There is a painting hanging in London right now that most visitors walk straight past without ever seeing its real subject. From the front, it looks like an ordinary double portrait. Two wealthy men, fine clothes, expensive instruments. But if you stand at the far edge of the frame and look at it sideways, almost against the wall, something else appears on the floor between them. A skull, staring straight back at you. And the strange part is that this is not a trick of the light or a shadow. It is a deliberate, mathematically engineered optical illusion, painted nearly 500 years ago, and for a long time, almost nobody could explain why it was there. But to understand this painting, we first need to know who these two men were and what world they were living in. This painting is called The Ambassadors. It was painted by Holbein the Younger in 1533, and today it hangs in the National Gallery in London in room 4. This was also a period when the uncertainty of life was something people experienced every day across Europe. Recurring outbreaks of disease could appear with little warning, bringing major challenges to communities and leaving families unsure of what the future would hold. These events became a constant reminder of how fragile life could be, shaping the way people thought about faith, time, and their own place in the world. Holbein himself would eventually pass away during a plague outbreak in London about 10 years later. For a Renaissance viewer, mortality was not simply a distant philosophical idea, it was a familiar part of everyday life, influencing art, culture, and the choices people made. Now, if we look at the composition itself, the first thing we notice is how much wealth and knowledge is on display. The two men are surrounded by objects representing what was known as the quadrivium, the 4 core disciplines of Renaissance learning: arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. There are celestial globes for measuring the heavens and a terrestrial globe for mapping the Earth. There are instruments for navigation and timekeeping. On the surface, it looks like a monument to human achievement. Two brilliant men who had mastered the sciences of their age. But if we look closer, small signs of disorder start to appear. There is a lute on the lower shelf, and its string is broken, a quiet symbol of discord. Next to it sits a hymnal, one that was actually composed by Martin Luther, placed deliberately beside a book representing Catholic tradition. Holbein was encoding the exact religious fracture tearing Europe apart, right there among the instruments of human knowledge. And then, tucked into the very top left corner of the painting, half hidden behind a green curtain, there is a small crucifix, almost invisible unless you are looking for it. It's easy to miss entirely. Which is exactly the point, because this painting is not actually about knowledge or wealth or diplomacy. All of that is a surface. And the detail that reveals what is really going on is the object stretched diagonally across the floor between the two men, right at the center of the composition. From straight ahead, it looks like nothing at all, a strange, elongated smear with no clear shape, almost like a warped piece of driftwood lying on the ground. Most people assume it's simply a flaw in the painting, or something they don't understand, and move on. But when viewed from the correct angle, from the far right side of the painting, the shape resolves into a recognizable human skull. This is a technique called anamorphosis, a form of extreme perspective distortion that only reconstructs itself correctly when seen from one specific point in space. Holbein didn't just paint a skull. He engineered an object that hides in plain sight unless you physically change your position, forcing the viewer's own body to become part of the artwork. And this is where the painting reveals its deepest layer of meaning. The strange skull is not placed randomly. Holbein positioned it directly over the center of the floor pattern, a design inspired by the famous pavement in Westminster Abbey. By doing this, he quietly reminds the viewer that every achievement, every ambition, and every symbol of success ultimately exists within the limits of human life. Surrounding the two diplomats are objects that represent knowledge, science, exploration, music, religion, and political influence. Together, these items celebrate the remarkable accomplishments of the Renaissance. Yet the hidden skull introduces a second message that balances all of them. It encourages viewers to remember that wisdom and status are valuable, but they are never permanent. The skull only becomes recognizable when the painting is viewed from a different angle, inviting people to slow down, question what they first assumed, and search for a deeper understanding. Rather than presenting a simple portrait, Holbein created a work that rewards careful observation and thoughtful reflection. Every detail contributes to the idea that appearances can be incomplete and that true insight often comes only after changing your perspective and looking beyond what seems obvious at first glance. Art historians have long pointed out how carefully planned this remarkable illusion was. Holbein did not hide the skull by accident. Every measurement and every angle appear to have been calculated so that the image would only make sense from a very specific viewpoint. Historical accounts suggest that some visitors had to move toward the far right side of the painting before the distorted shape transformed into a clearly recognizable skull. Seen from the front, it appears mysterious and confusing, but from the correct position, its meaning suddenly becomes clear. This unusual design has fascinated viewers for centuries and continues to inspire discussion among historians and art lovers today. During the 19th century, some restorers reportedly misunderstood the stretched image and treated it as damage or an accidental mark on the surface of the painting. Later examinations recognized that it was an intentional part of Holbein's original composition, restoring one of the artwork's most famous features. Holbein never left a written explanation for why he gave the hidden skull such an important role, so scholars continue to explore its meaning. What remains certain is that the painting encourages careful observation and reminds viewers that first impressions are not always complete. Sometimes, a different perspective reveals details that were present all along, waiting to be discovered. Today, if you visit the National Gallery and make your way to room 4, you can still experience this remarkable illusion for yourself. Standing directly in front of the painting, the mysterious shape appears stretched and difficult to understand. But as you move toward the far right side, the hidden image gradually comes into focus, revealing the skull almost exactly as Holbein intended more than 500 years ago. It is an experience that transforms the way many visitors see the artwork, proving that a simple change in perspective can completely alter its meaning. Even after centuries of study, this painting continues to surprise people, inviting each new generation to look more carefully and discover details that might otherwise remain unnoticed. That lasting sense of mystery is one of the reasons it remains one of the most celebrated masterpieces of the Renaissance. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Why do you think Holbein included this hidden skull? Was it meant as a message for the two diplomats portrayed in the painting? Or was it intended as a timeless reminder for every viewer who would stand before it in the centuries to come? Share your interpretation below, because there are many fascinating ways to understand this extraordinary work of art. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more stories behind history's greatest masterpieces, and I'll see you in the next one.